It's 6:24. Welcome back to Breakfast Television. A recent report coming out of the Downtown Eastside suggests that conditions for Indigenous women can't improve until they have prominent roles in government and other policy-making organizations. This is just one of many reports referring to the individuals on the Downtown Eastside and other impoverished communities. I'm joined now by Angela Marie McDougall, and you are the Executive Director of Battered Women's Support Services. Angela Marie, thanks so much for coming in. First of all, as we talked about just briefly, this report is one of many that reflects the goings-on in the community. So tell us a little bit, first of all, about the report and the broader spectrum of things that are happening.
That's a really good thing to talk about. I'm not an author of the report. I have read the report, and it is one of the most incredible documents that speaks to, it's kind of a history lesson, and it's a social lesson, and it's very instructive for all of us that care about women, that care about Indigenous women, that care about equal societies. It's beautiful, actually, and it's part of, I think, many documents. But what's really different about this one is that it is over 100 women sharing their stories. I would recommend that your viewers read the report. There's a wealth of information there, and it's really inspiring, and it's instructive for all of us that care.
Okay, so what needs to happen? How can we move forward? How can we get more support for the women, not just on the Downtown East Side, but battered and affected women?
Well, so I think reading the report
that's a good place to start.
Really good place to start. I've read it. I recommend that all of my staff and coworkers and colleagues read it. I think that every government official should read it. I think that every person living in Canada should read it, as well as Vancouver. That's the one thing. And in it are a number of recommendations, and all of those recommendations are extraordinarily instructive. And so part of what I see as someone that cares about the neighborhood, cares about addressing violence against women, I am here to encourage everyone to read the report, particularly for those of us that are, that aren't Indigenous, that aren't necessarily thinking about some of the history in a way, but it's very instructive and insightful and provocative and inspiring.
What are you seeing in the community now? What's happening at the grassroots level? What's happening on the ground? Are you seeing a change even at your center, or are the problems still as deeply rooted as they always have been? So
Battered Women's Support Services is based in Vancouver, and we serve a number of different communities within Metro Vancouver, as well as in BC and in Canada. And we certainly work collaterally and alongside and in collaboration with many of the organizations that are based in the Downtown Eastside. And many of women that access our services are from the neighborhood. What we're seeing increasingly and perpetually is a sense of indifference, a sense of...
do you mean indifference by the community, by the government, law enforcement,
I would say
all of the above?
I think the community is strong and is clear. There is a sense, certainly, of an indifference from general population, an indifference, and it's in part how we view neighborhoods such as the Downtown Eastside. Every urban setting in Canada has a neighborhood where all of the social issues sort of grind down in a very particular way for people. Every neighborhood, every city, urban setting has one, and it's kind of the way that cities get made, and also where where most of the issues around poverty and violence end up being kind of positioned, and then the neighborhood becomes blamed for these problems and not recognizing that these are structural, they're historical. So I think part of it is why it's so important for us to understand the history and the recommendations growing out of it. And what we know certainly is that when we're thinking about the way that problems are historical and structural, and if we try and redress them that way, we go a long way to making change every day.
We need to have a greater knowledge base, and you know what they say about knowledge.
It's power.
Yeah, thank you so much for coming in.
My pleasure.
Appreciate it. Now we'll check in with Greg. He has been following